A 19-year-old girl gets sold by her own father to a crime lord to settle a debt, right in the heart of Rome. At first, she's just a helpless hostage. But when enemies storm the gates and bullets start flying, she picks up a weapon and fights back. The man who bought her like property suddenly sees something he didn't expect: a survivor. What begins as captivity twists into something far more dangerous, a bond neither of them planned for. This is a story of power, survival, and the thin line between prisoner and partner. If you're watching, hit that like button and drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this story travels. Now let's begin. The taxi smelled like stale cigarettes and diesel, and Lena Hayes pressed her forehead against the window, watching Rome blur past in streaks of ochre and gold. She'd imagined this city differently: postcards and romance, cappuccinos and sunlit piazzas. Not this. Her father silent beside her, jaw tight, eyes fixed straight ahead like he was driving towards something he couldn't turn away from. "Dad," she said quietly, "you haven't told me who we're meeting." He didn't look at her. "Someone who can help." "Help with what?" "The business." Lena bit the inside of her cheek. The business. That's all he'd said for weeks now. Vague references to debts and deals gone wrong, late-night phone calls he took in the garage, his voice low and strained. She dropped out of community college to come here, told herself it was temporary, that her father needed her. That's what daughters did. The taxi pulled up to a villa on the outskirts of the city, all stone walls and iron gates, surrounded by cypress trees that looked like they'd been standing there since the emperors. Lena climbed out, her sneakers crunching on gravel. The air smelled like jasmine and something else, something heavy, like smoke that had settled into the earth. Her father paid the driver and straightened his jacket. He looked older than he had a month ago, grayer. "Stay close," he said, "and let me do the talking." A man in a black suit opened the gate without a word. He had the kind of face that didn't bother pretending to be friendly. They walked through a courtyard lined with marble statues, gods and warriors frozen mid-battle, and into the villa itself. The floors were polished stone, the ceilings vaulted and painted with frescoes that Lena couldn't make sense of in the dim light. Everything about this place felt old. Not charming old, dangerous old. They were led into a sitting room with tall windows that overlooked a garden. Lena stood near the door, her hands folded in front of her, trying not to look as nervous as she felt. Her father sat on the edge of a leather chair, his knee bouncing. Then the door opened and a man walked in. He was older, mid-60s maybe, but he moved with the kind of control that made age irrelevant. Tall, lean, dressed in a dark suit that probably cost more than Lena's tuition. His hair was silver, combed back, and his eyes were the palest gray she'd ever seen. They swept over her father first, then landed on Lena. She felt her stomach drop. "Mr. Hayes," the man said. His voice was smooth, accented, almost polite. "You brought her." Her father stood, nodding too quickly. "Yes, this is Lena, my daughter." Lena blinked. "Dad?" "Quiet," her father said, not looking at her. The man walked closer, stopping a few feet away. He studied her the way someone might study a painting, detached, assessing. Lena's pulse hammered in her throat. "She's younger than I expected," the man said. "She just turned 19, her father said. "But she's smart, responsible." "Dad, what the hell is going on?" Her father flinched. The man didn't. "My name is Victor Romano," the man said, his eyes still on her. "And you, Lena, are here because your father owes me a considerable amount of money." The room tilted. Lena looked at her father, waiting for him to laugh, to say this was a mistake, a misunderstanding, but he wouldn't meet her eyes. "How much?" she asked. €3 million, Victor said. Lena's knees almost gave out. That's not possible." "It's very possible," Victor said. "Your father made investments he couldn't afford, borrowed from people he shouldn't have, and now the bill is due." She shook her head, backing toward the door. "Then he needs to pay it back. We'll figure it out. We'll sell the house. There's nothing to sell," Victor said. "The house is mortgaged. The business is bankrupt. Your father has no assets left." Lena's vision blurred. She turned to her father, her voice breaking. "Is that true?" He finally looked at her. His eyes were red. "I'm sorry, Lena." "Sorry?" She laughed, sharp and bitter. "You brought me here to what? Beg for more time? Victor stepped forward, and the air seemed to tighten around him. Your father brought you here because we made an agreement. What agreement? You, Victor said simply, in exchange for the debt. The words didn't land right. Lena heard them, but they didn't make sense. She looked at her father again, waiting for him to deny it. He didn't. You sold me? She whispered. It's not like that, her father said quickly. It's temporary, just until I can get back on my feet. Temporary? Victor's tone was almost amused. No, Mr. Hayes, we discussed this. Your daughter becomes my wife. The debt is forgiven. That was the deal. Lena's chest felt like it was caving in. You're insane. Both of you. She turned and ran for the door, but the man in the black suit was already there, blocking it. She tried to shove past him, but he didn't move. She spun back toward her father, her voice rising. Tell him no. Tell him this isn't happening. Her father stood there, his hands shaking. I don't have a choice, Lena. Everyone has a choice, she screamed. Not when the alternative is a bullet in my head, her father snapped. Not when they'll come for you next. Victor watched them both, his expression unreadable. Your father is correct. He borrowed from very dangerous people. People I had to pay off to keep him breathing. This is the price. Lena's throat closed. She couldn't breathe, couldn't think. Take her upstairs, Victor said to the man at the door. 3rd floor, the east wing. No, Lena said, her voice hoarse. No, I'm not. The man grabbed her arm. She twisted, tried to pull away, but he was twice her size. Her father didn't move, didn't try to stop it. Dad, please. I'm sorry, her father said again. And then he turned away. Lena fought the whole way up the stairs, kicking and clawing, but it didn't matter. The man dragged her down a long hallway, unlocked a heavy wooden door, and shoved her inside. She stumbled, caught herself against a bedpost, and spun around just as the door slammed shut. The lock clicked. She ran to it, pounding with both fists. Let me out! You can't do this! No one answered. Lena sank to the floor, her back against the door, and tried to breathe. The room was massive. High ceilings, ornate furniture, a 4-poster bed draped in dark fabric. There was a balcony, but when she checked, it was 3 stories up with no fire escape. The windows didn't open wide enough to climb through. She was trapped. Hours passed, or maybe minutes. Lena lost track. She sat on the floor, her mind racing, trying to figure out how this had happened, how her father, her own father, had done this. Eventually, the lock turned. Lena scrambled to her feet, ready to bolt, but it was just a woman, middle-aged, dressed in black, carrying a tray of food. Eat, the woman said in accented English, setting the tray on a table. I'm not hungry. The woman shrugged and left. Lena didn't touch the food. She paced the room, tested the door again, searched every drawer and cabinet for anything she could use. There was nothing. No phone, no way out. When the sun set, the room filled with shadows. Lena sat on the edge of the bed, hugging her knees, trying not to cry. She'd never felt so small in her life. The door opened again. Victor stood in the doorway, still in his suit, his expression calm. He stepped inside and closed the door behind him. Lena shot to her feet, backing toward the far wall. Stay away from me. He stopped in the center of the room. I'm not here to hurt you. You kidnapped me. Your father brought you here willingly. Under duress, her voice cracked. This is insane. You can't just... People don't do this. People do this all the time, Victor said. You've simply never been on this side of it. Lena's hands balled into fists. I'll run. The second I get a chance, I'm gone. Where will you go? Victor asked, his tone almost gentle. Back to your father? He won't take you. He can't afford to. Then I'll go to the police. Victor smiled faintly. The police in this city are not your friends, Lena. Half of them are on my payroll. She felt the floor drop out from under her. What are you? I'm a businessman. You're a criminal. Those terms are not mutually exclusive. Lena's breath came in short gasps. She wanted to scream, to throw something, but she forced herself to stay still, to think. What do you want from me? She asked. Victor walked to the window, looking out over the garden. I want a wife. Why? He didn't answer right away. When he spoke again, his voice was quieter. I'm getting old, Lena. My empire is strong, but it needs stability, legitimacy, a family. So buy a dog. He turned back to her, and for the first time she saw something flicker in his eyes. Amusement, maybe? You have spirit. That's good. I'm not marrying you. You will, Victor said. Not today. Perhaps not tomorrow. But you will. Never. He walked toward the door, pausing with his hand on the handle. You should eat. You'll need your strength. For what? For surviving, he said, and left. Lena stood there for a long time, staring at the closed door. Then she grabbed the tray of food and hurled it against the wall. The plates shattered, food splattering across the floor. It didn't make her feel better. She sank onto the bed, pulled her knees to her chest, and finally let herself cry. The next morning, the woman in black returned with breakfast and cleaned up the mess without a word. Lena didn't apologize. She sat by the window, watching the gardens below, trying to map out an escape route. Around noon, Victor appeared again. Get dressed, he said. Something appropriate. For what? You're joining me for lunch. I'm not hungry. It wasn't a request. Lena glared at him, but he didn't move. Finally, she stalked to the wardrobe where someone had hung a row of dresses. She grabbed one at random, a simple navy dress, and changed in the bathroom, slamming the door. When she came out, Victor was waiting. He led her downstairs to a dining room with a table long enough to seat 20. Only 2 places were set, across from each other. Lena sat, crossing her arms. A different woman brought out plates, pasta, salad, bread. It smelled incredible, but Lena didn't touch it. Victor ate calmly, cutting his food with precision. You're going to starve yourself? Maybe. That would be inconvenient. Good. He set down his fork. Lena, I understand you're angry. You understand nothing. I understand more than you think, Victor said. I know what it's like to have your life decided for you, to feel powerless. Then let me go. I can't. Can't or won't. Both. Lena's jaw tightened. I hate you. You don't know me well enough to hate me. I know enough. Victor leaned back in his chair, studying her. Tell me about yourself. Why? Because if we're going to live in the same house, I'd prefer not to be strangers. We're not living together, Lena said. I'm your prisoner. You're my guest. Guests can leave. Victor's expression didn't change. Eat your lunch, Lena. She stared at him, defiant, then grabbed her fork and stabbed a piece of pasta. She chewed slowly, never breaking eye contact. He almost smiled. The days blurred together. Lena stayed in her room most of the time, only coming out when forced. Victor didn't push her. He appeared at mealtimes, asked her questions she refused to answer, and left when she ignored him. But she was watching, learning. The villa had guards, always 2 at the front gate, 1 in the courtyard, more scattered throughout the grounds. They carried guns under their jackets, not bothering to hide them. The staff, maids, cooks, moved like ghosts, never meeting her eyes. And Victor, he was always calm, always in control. It was unnerving. One evening, about a week in, he knocked on her door. Come with me, he said. Where? You'll see. Lena hesitated, then followed. He led her to a library, 2 stories of bookshelves, a fireplace, leather chairs. It smelled like old paper and wood smoke. You like to read? Victor asked. Lena shrugged. He pulled a book from the shelf and handed it to her. It was in Italian. I can't read this, she said. Then learn. She stared at him. You're serious. Very. Why? Because you're going to be here for a long time, Victor said, and boredom is a slow death. Lena set the book down. I won't be here that long. Victor didn't argue. He just gestured to the shelves. There are books in English as well. Help yourself. She didn't want to take anything from him, but the silence in her room was suffocating. She grabbed a few novels at random and left without a word. That night, she read until her eyes burned. A month. 2 weeks in, Victor changed tactics. You're coming with me today, he said at breakfast. Where? Into the city. Lena's heart jumped. The city meant people, witnesses, a chance. Why? Because I have business, and I want you to see what my life looks like. She didn't trust it, but she wasn't going to pass up the opportunity. She dressed quickly, choosing jeans and a jacket, and followed him to a black car waiting in the courtyard. The driver was the same man who'd dragged her upstairs that first day. He didn't acknowledge her. They drove into Rome, weaving through narrow streets until they reached a restaurant in Trastevere. It was closed, but Victor had a key. Inside, a group of men were waiting, older, well-dressed, speaking rapid Italian. Victor gestured for Lena to sit in the corner. She did, watching as he joined the men at a table. They talked in low voices, occasionally glancing her way. One of them said something that made the others laugh. Victor's expression didn't change. Lena's mind raced. The door was unlocked. She could run, right now. But the driver was standing just outside, and the men at the table had the same predatory stillness as Victor. If she ran, they'd catch her before she made it 10 feet. The meeting lasted an hour. When it was over, Victor stood, shook hands, and motioned for Lena to follow. In the car, she finally spoke. What was that? Business. What kind of business? The kind that keeps people like your father alive. Lena's stomach turned. You're a loan shark. Among other things. You ruin people's lives. Victor looked at her, his pale eyes unreadable. I give people choices, Lena. What they do with those choices is up to them. That's not. Your father chose to borrow money he couldn't repay, Victor said. I didn't force him. But you're forcing me. Yes, Victor said simply. I am. She turned away, staring out the window. That night, Lena tried the door. It was unlocked. She stood there, her hand on the knob, hardly breathing. This was it, her chance. She slipped into the hallway, moving as quietly as she could. The villa was dark, only a few lamps casting shadows. She made it to the stairs, started down. Going somewhere? She froze. Victor was sitting in the sitting room, a book in his lap, a glass of wine on the table beside him. He didn't look surprised. Lena's heart hammered. The door was open. I know. You left it open on purpose. Yes. Why? Victor set the book down. To see what you'd do. Lena's hands clenched. This is sick. This is a test, Victor said, and you failed. I didn't fail anything. I tried to escape. And where were you going to go? Victor asked. The gates are locked. The guards are armed. You don't speak the language, and you have no money. He stood, walking toward her. You would have made it as far as the courtyard before someone stopped you. Lena's throat tightened. So this was just a game to you? No, Victor said. It was a lesson. You're not ready to leave. I'll never be ready to stay. Victor stopped in front of her, close enough that she had to tilt her head back to meet his eyes. You're stronger than you think, Lena, but strength without strategy is just noise. I don't want your advice. Then you'll keep failing, Victor said, and walked past her, heading upstairs. Lena stood there, shaking with rage and shame, until she couldn't stand it anymore. She went back to her room and slammed the door. The days continued. Victor didn't mention the failed escape. He kept appearing at meals, kept talking to her like they were having normal conversations. It was maddening. One afternoon, he brought her to the garden. Walk with me, he said. Lena didn't want to, but she was tired of being inside. They walked along stone paths, past fountains and rose bushes, the city sprawling in the distance. Why did you really bring me here? Lena asked. I told you, to settle your father's debt. No. I mean, why marriage? You could have just taken the money some other way. Victor was quiet for a moment. I'm 64 years old, Lena. I have no children, no heirs. In my world, that's a weakness. So have a kid with someone your own age. I did, Victor said. She died. Lena stopped walking. Victor kept going, his hands behind his back. 20 years ago. Cancer. We never had children. Lena didn't know what to say. I'm not asking you to love me, Victor said, turning back to her. I'm asking you to survive. And if you do that long enough, you might find this life isn't as unbearable as you think. It's unbearable, Lena said. Then make it less so. How? Victor smiled faintly. That's up to you. A month passed. Lena stopped trying to escape. Not because she'd given up, but because she realized Victor was right. She wasn't ready. She needed to be smarter, so she started paying attention. She learned the guards' schedules, learned which doors were locked and which weren't. She started picking up Italian from the staff, just enough to understand snippets of conversation, and she watched Victor. He was meticulous, controlled, but he wasn't cruel. He never raised his voice, never threatened her. He just existed, like a storm you could see coming but couldn't avoid. One night, he invited her to dinner in the main dining room again. This time, there were others, 3 men and 2 women, all dressed like they'd stepped out of a magazine. They spoke in Italian, but one of them switched to English when Lena sat down. "So you're the American," the woman said, smiling. Her teeth were too white. "Victor's told us about you." Lena glanced at Victor. He was watching her. "Has he?" Lena said flatly. "He says you're very spirited." The table laughed. Lena's face burned. The dinner was excruciating. They talked around her, sometimes at her, like she was a curiosity, a pet. Lena barely touched her food. When it was finally over, Victor walked her back upstairs. "I hated that," Lena said. "I know." "Then why did you make me do it?" "Because that's the world you're in now," Victor said. "And you need to learn how to navigate it." Lena stopped at her door. "I'm never going to fit in with those people." "Good," Victor said. "I don't want you to." She frowned. "Then what do you want?" Victor looked at her for a long moment. "I want you to be yourself. Just sharper." He left before she could respond. 6 weeks in, Lena stopped counting the days. She still hated it, hated him, hated her father most of all. But something had shifted. She wasn't just surviving anymore, she was planning. And Victor, for all his control, hadn't noticed yet. That was going to be her advantage. The breakthrough came on a Tuesday. Lena was in the library, curled up in one of the leather chairs with an Italian grammar book, when Victor walked in. He didn't say anything at first, just poured himself a drink from the bar cart and settled into the chair across from her. "You're making progress," he said, nodding at the book. "I'm bored," Lena said. "There's nothing else to do." "That's not true. You could join me for meetings, learn the business." Lena looked up. "Why would I do that?" "Because knowledge is power," Victor said. "And right now, you have very little of either." She hated that he was right. "What kind of meetings?" "The kind where decisions get made." He took a sip of his drink. "Tomorrow, 9 in the morning. Wear something professional." Lena wanted to refuse, but curiosity won. "Fine." Victor almost smiled. "Good." The next morning, Lena put on a black dress she found in the wardrobe. Simple, high-necked, nothing flashy, and met Victor downstairs. He looked her over and nodded once, then led her to the car. They drove to an office building in the business district, all glass and steel, completely at odds with the ancient villa. Inside, they took a private elevator to the top floor. The conference room had floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, and a long table where 4 men were already seated. They stood when Victor entered, their eyes flicked to Lena, then away. "Gentlemen," Victor said in English, gesturing to Lena, "this is my fiancée. She'll be sitting in." "Fiancée?" Lena's stomach turned, but she kept her face blank. The men exchanged glances but said nothing. Victor pulled out a chair for her at the end of the table, then took his seat at the head. The meeting started in Italian. Lena caught maybe 1 word in 5, numbers mostly, percentages, addresses. But she watched their faces, watched the way they deferred to Victor, the way one man's hand shook slightly when he spoke. Watched the power dynamics play out in glances and pauses. After an hour, Victor switched to English. "Marco, the shipment from Genoa, status?" The man with the shaking hand cleared his throat. "Delayed. Customs is asking questions." "What kind of questions?" "The usual. Paperwork discrepancies." Victor's expression didn't change. "Fix it." "I'm trying, but—" "Fix it," Victor repeated, his voice quieter. "Or I'll find someone who can." Marco went pale. "Yes, sir." The meeting wrapped up 20 minutes later. The men filed out, none of them looking at Lena. When the room was empty, Victor stood and walked to the windows. "What did you think?" he asked. "I think Marco's going to have a heart attack," Lena said. Victor's mouth twitched. "Probably." "What's in the shipment?" Nothing that concerns you. Then why bring me? Victor turned to face her. Because I want you to understand how things work. These men respect me because I'm consistent, predictable. When I say something will happen, it happens. That's fear, Lena said, not respect. In my world, they're the same thing. Lena stood, crossing her arms. You could have just killed Marco. Why didn't you? Because he's useful, and mistakes can be corrected. Victor walked closer. But repeated mistakes? Those are a choice. Is that a threat? It's a fact. They stared at each other. Lena's pulse hammered, but she didn't look away. Come on, Victor said finally. I'll buy you lunch. They ate at a small trattoria tucked into a side street, the kind of place with checkered tablecloths and waiters who knew Victor by name. Lena ordered pasta, more out of habit than hunger. You didn't eat at the villa this morning, Victor said. I wasn't hungry. You're never hungry. Maybe I don't like being watched every second of the day. Victor cut into his veal. You'll get used to it. I won't, he sighed. Lena, you can fight this for the rest of your life, or you can adapt. One of those options is significantly easier. Easier doesn't make it right. Right and wrong are luxuries, Victor said. Survival is practical. Lena set down her fork. You really believe that? I've lived long enough to know it's true. Then you've lived wrong. Victor looked at her, something unreadable passing across his face. Maybe, but I'm still here. They finished the meal in silence. On the drive back, Lena stared out the window, watching the city scroll past. Somewhere out there, people were living normal lives, going to work, meeting friends, falling in love. She used to be one of them. Now she was this. Back at the villa, Lena went straight to her room. She pulled out the small notebook she'd been keeping, dates, times, patterns, guard rotations, Victor's schedule. She was building a map piece by piece. She just needed the right moment. That night, Victor knocked on her door. Come in, Lena said, not looking up from her book. He stepped inside carrying a small box. I have something for you. Lena frowned. I don't want anything from you. It's not a gift, it's a necessity. He set the box on the table and opened it. Inside was a phone, sleek, expensive looking. Lena stared at it. What's the catch? No catch. You're allowed to call anyone you want. Text, email. Seriously? Seriously. Lena picked up the phone, half expecting it to explode. Why now? Because isolation is a punishment, Victor said, and I'm not punishing you. You're keeping me prisoner. That's a punishment. You're here because of circumstances, not cruelty. Lena wanted to throw the phone at him, but she didn't. Instead, she turned it on. It was already set up. Her name listed as the owner. Who am I supposed to call? She asked. My dad? Who sold me? My friends? Who think I'm in Europe having the time of my life? Call whoever you want, Victor said. Just don't tell them where you are. Or what? Or I'll take the phone back. Lena's jaw tightened, but she nodded. Victor left without another word. She sat there for a long time, staring at the phone. Then she opened her contacts. There were only 2 numbers saved, Victor and someone labeled emergency. She almost laughed. Instead, she called her best friend Maya. It rang 4 times before Maya picked up. Lena? Oh my God, I've been texting you for weeks. Lena's throat closed. Hey Maya. Where the hell are you? Your dad said you're in Italy, but you've been radio silent. I know, I'm sorry. I've been busy. Busy? Are you okay? You sound weird. Lena forced a smile into her voice. I'm fine. Just adjusting. It's a lot. Is your dad's business thing going okay? Yeah, it's complicated, but we're figuring it out. Maya laughed. Well, send me pictures. I want to see Rome. And any hot Italian guys you meet. Lena's chest ached. I will. I promise. They talked for another 10 minutes. Maya chattering about college, her new boyfriend, some party Lena had missed. Normal things. Things that felt a million miles away. When they hung up, Lena sat in the dark, the phone still in her hand. She wanted to scream. The next few weeks followed a pattern. Victor took her to more meetings, introduced her to more people. Some of them were polite. Others weren't. Lena learned to read a room, to stay quiet unless spoken to smile when necessary. It was exhausting, But she kept watching, kept learning. One afternoon, Victor brought her to a warehouse on the outskirts of the city. It was massive, filled with shipping crates and forklifts. Men in coveralls moved between the rows, loading trucks. "What is this place?" Lena asked. "Logistics," Victor said. "We import goods, distribute them." "Legal goods?" Victor glanced at her. "Some of them." They walked through the warehouse, Victor stopping occasionally to speak with workers. Lena trailed behind, taking in every detail. The cameras, the exits, the loading docks. Near the back, a man in a suit was arguing with one of the workers. His voice was rising, hands gesturing wildly. Victor walked over, and the man immediately stopped talking. "Problem?" Victor asked. The man straightened. "No, sir, just a scheduling issue. Fix it." "Yes, sir." Victor turned and walked away. Lena followed, glancing back at the man. He looked like he might throw up. "You terrify people," Lena said. "Yes." "Doesn't that bother you?" "No." "Why not?" Victor stopped, turning to face her. "Because fear keeps people honest. The moment they stop fearing you, they start lying to you. That's a sad way to live." "It's a safe way to live," Victor said. "There's a difference." They drove back in silence. Lena stared out the window, her mind racing. She was starting to see the shape of Victor's world, the money, the power, the violence lurking just beneath the surface. It was bigger than she'd realized, more dangerous, and she was stuck in the middle of it. That night she couldn't sleep. She paced her room, then finally grabbed her phone, and called her father. He answered on the third ring. "Lena." "Don't," she said. "Don't say my name like we're still family." There was a long pause. "How are you?" "How do you think I am?" "I know you're angry." "Angry?" Lena laughed, sharp and bitter. "You sold me, Dad, to a criminal, and you want to know if I'm angry? I didn't have a choice. Everyone keeps saying that, but you did. You could have said no. You could have found another way." "There was no other way," her father said, his voice breaking. "They were going to kill me, Lena, and then they were going to come for you. So you handed me over first. I kept you alive." Lena's vision blurred. "You ruined my life." "I saved it." "No," Lena said. "You saved yours." She hung up before he could respond. Then she threw the phone across the room. It hit the wall and clattered to the floor, the screen cracking. She sank onto the bed, shaking with rage and grief, and finally let herself cry. Not the quiet, stifled tears she'd been holding back for weeks. Real, ugly crying that left her gasping for air. She hated her father, hated Victor, hated herself for not being strong enough to escape. But most of all, she hated that a small, traitorous part of her was starting to understand. The next morning, Victor saw the cracked phone. "What happened?" he asked. "I dropped it," Lena lied. He didn't believe her, but he didn't push. Instead, he handed her a new one. "Try to be more careful." Lena took it without a word. That afternoon, Victor told her to get dressed. "We're going out." "Where?" "You'll see." They drove into the city center, pulling up in front of a boutique with a window full of dresses that probably cost more than Lena's old car. Victor opened her door. "Come on," he said. Inside, a woman greeted them in rapid Italian, then switched to English when she saw Lena. "Welcome, welcome, Mr. Romano. Always a pleasure." "She needs a wardrobe," Victor said. "Evening wear, business attire, casual." The woman's eyes lit up. "Of course, right this way." For the next 2 hours, Lena was measured, draped in fabric, and paraded in front of mirrors. She tried on dress after dress, suit after suit, while Victor sat in a chair, sipping espresso and occasionally nodding or shaking his head. "I can dress myself," Lena said at one point, her voice tight. "Not for where we're going," Victor said. "And where's that?" "A gala. Next week." Lena's stomach dropped. "I'm not going to a gala." "You are." "I'll embarrass you." "I doubt that." "I don't know how to act at those things." Victor set down his cup. "Then I'll teach you." The next few days were a crash course in etiquette. Victor hired a woman named Julia, elegant, sharp-eyed, with the patience of a saint, to teach Lena how to navigate high society. They practiced small talk, how to hold a wine glass, how to walk in heels. how to deflect questions she didn't want to answer. "You're doing well," Julia said after one session. Lena didn't feel like she was doing well. She felt like a trained animal. The night of the gala, Lena stood in front of the mirror in a floor-length emerald dress that clung to her like water. Her hair was pinned up, her makeup subtle but precise. She looked older, sharper. She barely recognized herself. Victor appeared in the doorway dressed in a tuxedo. He stopped when he saw her, something flickering across his face. "You look beautiful," he said. "I look like someone else," Lena said. "Maybe that's not a bad thing." She turned to face him. "I don't want to do this. I know, but you will." He held out his arm. "Come on." The gala was held in a palazzo that looked like it had been frozen in time. Frescoed ceilings, marble columns, chandeliers dripping with crystals. The guests were dripping too, in diamonds and silk, their laughter echoing off the walls. Lena felt like she'd stepped into a movie, a very expensive, very dangerous movie. Victor guided her through the crowd, introducing her to people whose names she forgot immediately. Everyone smiled, everyone was polite, and everyone was watching her. "You're doing fine," Victor murmured as they moved toward the bar. "I feel like I'm going to throw up." "Don't." A man approached, older, with silver hair and a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Victor, good to see you." "Alessio," Victor said, shaking his hand. "This is Lana, my fiancée." Alessio's gaze slid over her. "Charming. American?" "Yes," Lena said. "How refreshing. We so rarely see new faces in Victor's world." There was something off about the way he said it, something sharp beneath the pleasantries. "Lena's been a wonderful addition," Victor said smoothly. "I'm sure." Alessio's smile widened. "Well, don't let me keep you. Enjoy the evening." He walked away, and Lena exhaled. "Who was that?" she asked. "A competitor," Victor said, "and not a friendly one." "Why did you introduce me to him?" "Because he would have found out eventually. Better to control the narrative." Lena frowned, but before she could ask more, another couple approached, then another. The night became a blur of faces and forced smiles, Lena's cheeks aching from the effort. At one point, she excused herself to the restroom. Inside, she leaned against the sink, staring at her reflection. She looked calm, composed. She felt like she was fracturing. When she returned, Victor was speaking with a woman in a red dress, stunning, older, with the kind of confidence Lena envied. The woman laughed at something Victor said, touching his arm. Lena's chest tightened. She didn't know why. Victor noticed her and gestured her over. "Lena, this is Isabella, an old friend." Isabella's smile was warm. "Victor's told me so much about you." "Has he?" Lena said flatly. Isabella laughed. "Don't worry, all good things." She turned to Victor. "She's lovely. You've done well." "Thank you," Victor said. Lena wanted to snap that she wasn't a prize to be appraised, but she bit her tongue. The rest of the evening dragged. By the time they left, Lena's feet were killing her and her head was pounding. In the car, Victor loosened his tie. "You did well. I hated every second of it." "I know, but you didn't show it. That's what matters." Lena leaned her head against the window. "Is this my life now, pretending to be someone I'm not?" "You're not pretending," Victor said. "You're adapting." "What's the difference?" "Pretending is temporary. Adapting is survival." Lena closed her eyes. She was so tired, tired of fighting, tired of being scared, tired of this endless, suffocating reality. When they got back to the villa, she went straight to her room and collapsed on the bed, still in her dress. She didn't hear Victor pause outside her door before walking away. The next morning, Lena woke to shouting. She bolted upright, her heart racing. The voices were coming from downstairs, men, arguing in Italian. She grabbed a robe and crept into the hallway. The shouting grew louder. Then a gunshot. Lena froze. Another shot. Then silence. She ran back to her room and locked the door, her hands shaking. She grabbed her phone, but who was she supposed to call? The police? Victor owned them. Footsteps pounded up the stairs. Lena backed into the corner, looking for anything she could use as a weapon. The door flew open. It was Victor. His shirt was untucked, a smear of blood on his sleeve. He wasn't hurt. At least, she didn't think so. Are you all right? He asked. What happened? Stay here. Don't come out until I tell you. Victor. Stay here, he repeated and left, locking the door behind him. Lena sank to the floor, her breath coming in short gasps. The shots echoed in her head. This wasn't just business. This was war, and she was trapped in the middle of it. Hours crawled by. Lena sat on the floor with her back against the bed, knees pulled to her chest, listening to the muffled sounds below. Voices. Footsteps. At one point, a car engine started and faded into the distance. She didn't move. When the lock finally turned, she flinched. Victor stepped inside, looking exhausted. The blood on his sleeve had dried to a dark stain. Are you hurt? Lena asked, her voice hoarse. No. Whose blood is that? Victor glanced at his shirt. No one you need to worry about. That's not an answer. He crossed the room and sat in the chair by the window, rubbing his face. A man tried to kill me this morning. He failed. Lena's stomach turned. Is he dead? Yes. The word hung between them. Lena wanted to ask more. Who was he? Why did he come? How many others were there? But her throat had closed up. This is because of last night, she said finally. The gala. That man, Alessio. Victor looked at her, surprised. You're perceptive. I'm not stupid. No, you're not. He leaned back, closing his eyes. Alessio's been testing boundaries for months. Last night was a message. Today was his answer. And now? Now he knows I won't tolerate it. Lena's hands trembled. This is insane. People don't just... You can't just kill someone and go on with your day. In your world, no. In mine, yes. I don't want to be in your world. Victor opened his eyes. You don't have a choice, Lena. Neither of us do. She wanted to scream at him, to throw something, but the fight had drained out of her. She just felt hollow. Go take a shower, Victor said quietly. Change your clothes. We're leaving in an hour. Leaving where? Somewhere safer. They drove north into the hills outside Rome. The villa fell away behind them, replaced by olive groves and vineyards, the landscape turning wilder as they climbed. Lena stared out the window, too numb to ask questions. After an hour, they turned onto a narrow road that wound through pine trees. At the end was another villa, smaller than the one in Rome, older, built into the hillside like it had grown there. What is this place? Lena asked. A safe house, Victor said. No one knows about it, except a few trusted people. Inside, the air smelled like wood smoke and lavender. The furniture was simpler here, the rooms smaller. It felt less like a fortress and more like a home. Victor showed her to a bedroom on the second floor. You'll stay here until things settle down. How long will that take? A few days? Maybe a week? Lena sat on the edge of the bed. What happens after that? We go back, and we keep moving forward. I don't know how to do this, Lena said, her voice breaking. I don't know how to live like this. Victor crouched in front of her, his pale eyes level with hers. Yes, you do. You've been doing it for 2 months. That was different. I thought maybe I could still get out. Still go home. And now? Now I know I can't. Victor was quiet for a moment. Then he stood. Get some rest. We'll talk later. He left, closing the door softly behind him. Lena lay back on the bed, staring at the ceiling. She didn't cry. She was too tired for that. She just breathed in and out, trying to hold herself together. That night, she couldn't sleep. She wandered downstairs and found Victor in the kitchen, pouring himself a drink. He looked up when she entered. Can't sleep? He asked. No. He poured a second glass and handed it to her. Lena took it, even though she didn't usually drink. It was whiskey, smooth and burning. They sat at the kitchen table in silence. The house creaked around them, settling into the night. Why did you really bring me here, ma'am? Lena asked. To this house, I mean. I told you, it's safer. But why bring me at all? You could have left me locked in my room. Victor turned the glass in his hands. Because if something happened to me, you'd be a target, and I'd rather not leave you defenseless. So this is strategy. Everything is strategy. Lena took another sip. The whiskey was starting to blur the edges of her fear. Do you ever get tired of it? The planning, the violence, the constant fighting? Victor looked at her, really looked at her. Every day. Then why not stop? Because stopping means dying, or worse. What's worse than dying? Losing everything you've built, watching it crumble while you're still breathing. Lena shook her head. That's pride talking. Maybe, but pride is all I have left. They sat in silence again. Lena finished her drink and set the glass down. I'm not going to fall in love with you, she said. Victor's mouth twitched. I'm not asking you to. Then what are you asking? For you to survive. That's all. Lena stood, her legs unsteady. I'm going to bed. Lena. She stopped, turning back. You're stronger than you think, Victor said. Don't forget that. She didn't respond. She just walked away, her footsteps echoing on the stone floor. The next few days were quiet. Too quiet. Lena spent most of her time reading or walking the grounds, which were surrounded by high walls and patrolled by guards. She felt like a bird in a gilded cage, except the cage had gotten slightly bigger. Victor was gone most of the time, handling whatever fallout had come from the attack. When he was there, he was distracted, tense. Lena didn't push. On the fourth day, he found her in the garden. We need to talk, he said. About what? About what happens next. They sat on a stone bench beneath a fig tree. The sun was warm, the air sweet with blossoms. It felt surreal talking about violence in a place this peaceful. Alessio won't stop, Victor said. He sees weakness in me now. Because of me. Because of the situation. You're just the excuse. Lena frowned. So what are you going to do? I'm going to make it clear that you're not a liability, that you're an asset. How? Victor looked at her. There's a gathering in 2 weeks. All the major families will be there. I'm going to introduce you as my wife. Lena's chest tightened. We're not married. We will be, before the gathering. No. Lena, no, she said, standing. You can't just decide that. I won't do it. Victor stood too, his voice calm but firm. If you don't, they'll see you as a weakness, and they'll use you to get to me. Then let them. You don't mean that. Yes, I do. Lena's voice cracked. I'm so tired, Victor. Tired of being a pawn in your world. Tired of pretending. I just want my life back. That life is gone. Because you took it. No, Victor said, stepping closer. Your father took it. I just happened to be on the other end of the transaction. Lena's hands balled into fists. I hate you. I know. I hate him more. I know that too. She turned away, her vision blurring. I can't marry you. You can. And you will. Because the alternative is worse. What alternative? Victor's voice dropped. The alternative is Alessio wins. And if he wins, he'll come for you. Not to use you as leverage, to send a message. Lena's blood went cold. You're threatening me. I'm protecting you, whether you believe that or not. She wanted to run, but there was nowhere to go. Wanted to scream, but it wouldn't change anything. So she just stood there, shaking, until Victor spoke again. I'm not asking you to love me, Lena. I'm not even asking you to like me. I'm asking you to trust me, just for a little while. Why should I? Because I'm the only thing standing between you and people who are much worse than I am. Lena laughed bitterly. That's a low bar. It's the truth. She turned to face him. If I do this, if I marry you, I want something in return. Victor raised an eyebrow. What? Freedom. Real freedom. I want to be able to leave the villa whenever I want, go into the city, see people, live. Within reason. No, not within reason. I want actual autonomy. Victor considered this. You'll have a guard. Fine. And you'll check in daily. Fine. And if there's a threat, you follow my instructions. No arguments. Lena hesitated, then nodded. Deal. Victor extended his hand. Lena stared at it for a long moment, then shook it. His grip was firm, warm. She pulled away quickly. When? She asked. The ceremony? Yes. 3 days from now. Lena's stomach dropped. That's not enough time. It's all we have. The next 3 days were a blur. Julia returned, this time with a dressmaker who measured Lena for a wedding dress. It was simple. Ivory silk, no train, no veil. Lena refused anything elaborate. "You're sure about this?" Julia asked as the dressmaker pinned the hem. "No," Lena said, "but I don't have a choice." "There's always a choice." Lena looked at her. "Not in this world." Julia smiled sadly. "You're learning." The ceremony was held in the villa's chapel, a small, stone room with stained glass windows that cast colored light across the floor. There were no guests, just Victor, Lena, a priest, and two witnesses Lena didn't know. Lena wore the dress. Victor wore a suit. They stood in front of the priest, and Lena barely heard the words. Her mind was somewhere else, watching this happen to someone else. When the priest asked if she took Victor as her husband, she said, "I do." When Victor slipped the ring on her finger, a simple gold band, she didn't flinch. When the priest pronounced them married, she didn't feel anything at all. Victor kissed her. Brief, chaste, more obligation than affection. Lena didn't kiss him back, and just like that, it was done. That night, Lena sat in her room, not theirs. Victor had made that clear, and stared at the ring on her finger. It felt heavy, foreign. There was a knock on the door. "Come in," she said. Victor entered, still in his suit but with the tie loosened. He looked tired. "Are you all right?" he asked. "Does it matter?" "To me, yes." Lena turned the ring on her finger. "I don't feel married." "Good, because this isn't a real marriage. It's a contract." "Is that supposed to make me feel better?" "It's supposed to make you feel safe." Lena laughed without humor. "I haven't felt safe since I got on that plane to Rome." Victor crossed the room and sat in the chair by the window. "I know this isn't what you wanted." "No, it's not." "But you handled it well. The ceremony." "I didn't handle it. I survived it. There's a difference." Victor was quiet for a moment. "You're right. I'm sorry." Lena looked at him surprised. "You're apologizing?" "For what it's worth." "It's not worth much." "I know." They sat in silence. Outside, the wind rustled through the trees. "What happens at the gathering?" Lena asked. "You meet people. Smile. Act like you're happy." "I'm not a good actor." "You're better than you think." Lena pulled her knees to her chest. "What if I mess up?" "You won't." "But what if I do?" Victor leaned forward, his elbows on his knees. "Then I'll handle it. That's what I do." "You can't handle everything." "Watch me." Lena almost smiled. Almost. The gathering was held at a sprawling estate an hour outside the city. Cars lined the driveway, sleek, expensive, some with drivers waiting. Lena's stomach churned as they pulled up. "Remember," Victor said as they climbed out, "you're confident, calm. You belong here." "I don't belong here." "Fake it." Inside, the estate was even more opulent than the palazzo from the gala. Marble everywhere, gold accents, art that probably cost more than Lena's childhood home. People filled the rooms, men in suits, women in gowns, all of them radiating power and money. Victor kept Lena close, his hand resting lightly on her back. They moved through the crowd, and people parted for them. Some smiled, others didn't. Alessio was there. Lena spotted him across the room, talking to a group of men. When he saw her, his smile widened. "Ignore him," Victor murmured. "Kinda hard when he's staring at me like I'm dinner." "He's testing you. Don't react." Easier said than done. Lena forced herself to look away, to focus on the conversations Victor was having. She smiled when she was supposed to, nodded when expected, and kept her mouth shut the rest of the time. Then Alessio approached. "Victor," he said warmly, extending his hand, "and the lovely bride. Congratulations." Victor shook his hand, his expression neutral. "Thank you." Alessio turned to Lena. "You look radiant, my dear. Marriage suits you." "Thank you," Lena said, her voice flat. "I hope Victor is treating you well." "He is." "Good, good. It would be a shame if he weren't." Alessio's smile didn't reach his eyes. "After all, you're quite the investment." Lena's jaw tightened. "I'm not an investment. I'm a person." The air shifted. Victor's hand pressed harder against her back, a silent warning. Alessio laughed. "Of course you are." Forgive me. I meant no offense. None taken, Lena said, her voice ice. Alessio studied her for a moment, then nodded. Well, I won't keep you. Enjoy the evening. He walked away, and Lena exhaled. That was reckless, Victor said quietly. He deserved it. Maybe, but you don't poke a snake and expect it not to bite. I'm not afraid of him. Victor looked at her. You should be. The rest of the evening was tense. Lena could feel eyes on her, people whispering. She'd made an impression, but she wasn't sure if it was the right one. When they finally left, she collapsed into the car seat, exhausted. You did well, Victor said. I told off one of your enemies. How is that well? Because you didn't back down. That matters. Lena closed her eyes. I don't care what matters to them. You should, because now they're watching you. 2 days later, everything went to hell. Lena was in the garden when she heard the gunfire. It was distant at first, then closer. She ran toward the villa, but one of the guards grabbed her. Inside, now. What's happening? Move! He dragged her inside, shoving her toward the stairs. Lena stumbled, catching herself on the railing. More gunfire erupted, closer now. Glass shattered somewhere below. Victor appeared, gun in hand. Get her upstairs. I can help, Lena said. No, you can't. Go. The guard pulled her up the stairs, but Lena twisted free. I'm not hiding while people are dying. Lena, this isn't a debate. An explosion rocked the villa. Lena was thrown sideways, hitting the wall hard. Her ears rang, her vision swimming. Victor hauled her to her feet. Are you hurt? I don't know. Can you run? Yes. Then run. They bolted down the hallway, Victor firing behind them. Lena's heart slammed against her ribs. She didn't know where they were going, just followed Victor as he led her through a maze of corridors. They reached a door at the end of the hall. Victor kicked it open, revealing a narrow staircase. Down! Now! Lena didn't argue. She ran, her feet pounding on the stone steps. Behind her, Victor fired again. Someone screamed. At the bottom was another door. Victor shoved it open and they spilled into a garage. A car was already running, a driver at the wheel. Get in, Victor said. Lena dove into the back seat. Victor climbed in beside her, and the car peeled out, tires screaming. Lena looked back. The villa was burning, smoke pouring from the windows. What the hell just happened? She gasped. Alessio sent a message, Victor said, his jaw tight. A message? He tried to kill us. Yes. Lena's hands were shaking. She looked down and saw blood on her sleeve. I'm bleeding. Victor grabbed her arm, inspecting it. It's just a graze. You'll be fine. I don't feel fine. Welcome to my world. The car sped through the countryside, putting distance between them and the burning villa. Lena's mind raced. She'd almost died. Actually, truly almost died. And she'd run. Not frozen, not collapsed. She'd run. Victor was on his phone, speaking rapid Italian. His voice was calm, controlled, but Lena could see the tension in his shoulders. When he hung up, he looked at her. Are you all right? No, but I'm alive. That's what counts. Lena leaned her head back, trying to slow her breathing. He's going to keep coming, isn't he? Yes. Then what do we do? Victor's eyes were cold. We make sure he regrets it. They drove for hours, switching cars twice, doubling back on roads Lena didn't recognize. By the time they reached a third safe house, this one a nondescript apartment in a working-class neighborhood, dawn was breaking over the city. Victor unlocked the door and ushered her inside. The apartment was small, sparsely furnished, nothing like the villas. It smelled like dust and old coffee. Stay away from the windows, Victor said, locking the door behind them. Lena sank onto the couch, her whole body trembling now that the adrenaline was fading. Her arm throbbed where the bullet had grazed her. Victor disappeared into the bathroom and returned with a first aid kit. Let me see, he said. She rolled up her sleeve. The wound wasn't deep, just an angry red line across her bicep, but it stung like hell. Victor cleaned it efficiently, his hand steady. You've done this before, Lena said. Too many times. How do you live like this? Victor didn't answer right away. He applied antiseptic, and Lena hissed, You get used to it, or you don't survive. That's not living. That's just not dying. He wrapped gauze around her arm, securing it with tape. Sometimes that's enough. Lena watched his face. He looked older in the harsh morning light, the lines around his eyes deeper. Do you ever regret it? The choices you made? Victor's hand stilled. Every day. Then why not stop? Walk away. Because walking away means leaving behind everyone who depends on me. My people. My businesses. He looked at her. You. I didn't ask to be your responsibility. No, but you are. He finished bandaging her arm and sat back. Lena flexed her fingers, testing the range of motion. Thank you, she said quietly. Victor nodded. Get some rest. We'll figure out our next move when you wake up. But Lena couldn't sleep. She lay on the couch, staring at the ceiling, replaying the attack in her mind. The gunfire. The explosion. The way Victor had shielded her with his own body when the walls came down. He could have left her, could have saved himself. He didn't. She got up and found him in the kitchen, standing by the window with his phone pressed to his ear, speaking rapid Italian. His shirt was still stained with blood. Not his own, she didn't think. When he saw her, he ended the call. You should be resting, he said. I can't. Every time I close my eyes, I'm back there. She wrapped her arms around herself. Who were they? The men who attacked us? Alessio's people. Mercenaries, mostly. He wanted to send a message. He almost killed us. That was the message. Victor turned back to the window. 3 of my men are dead. 5 more injured. The villa is destroyed. Lena's chest tightened. I'm sorry. It's not your fault. Isn't it? He came after you because of me. He came after me because he's ambitious and I'm in his way. You're just the excuse. Victor's jaw was tight. But he made a mistake. What mistake? He assumed you were a weakness, something to exploit. Aren't I? Victor looked at her, really looked at her. Not anymore. You picked up a weapon yesterday. You fought. Most people would have frozen or run, but you fought. I didn't think. I just saw you pinned down and… She stopped, realizing what she was admitting. I couldn't let them kill you. Why not? A few months ago, you would have cheered them on. Lena didn't have an answer for that, or maybe she did, and she wasn't ready to say it out loud. Victor crossed the small kitchen, stopping in front of her. You're not the same person who arrived in Rome. No, I'm not. She met his eyes. And neither are you. The man I met that first day wouldn't have cared if I got hurt in that attack, but you threw yourself in front of me. Instinct. No, it was choice. Lena stepped closer. You chose to protect me, just like I chose to protect you. The air between them felt charged. Victor's hand came up, cupping her cheek. This is complicated. Everything about us is complicated. Lena, don't. She pressed her fingers to his lips. Don't overthink it. Not right now. He kissed her instead. It was different from the desperate kiss at the coastal house. Slower, deeper, full of things neither of them could say. Lena's hands fisted in his shirt, pulling him closer, and Victor's arms wrapped around her like he could shield her from the entire world. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Victor rested his forehead against hers. We should talk about this, he said. Later. Right now I just need… She didn't finish the sentence. Didn't need to. Victor understood. He always understood. They spent the next 3 days in the apartment, barely leaving. Victor worked his phone constantly, making calls, coordinating with his people, planning his response to Alessio's attack. Lena watched him operate, saw the strategist beneath the violence, the chess player thinking 10 moves ahead. What's the plan? She asked on the 3rd day. I'm consolidating, pulling back my operations, fortifying what matters. And Alessio? He's overextended. The attack cost him resources he can't easily replace. If I'm patient, he'll make another mistake. And if he doesn't? Victor looked at her. Then I make him. That evening, one of Victor's men arrived with fresh clothes and supplies. He also brought news. Castellano wants a meeting, the man said in accented English. Who's Castellano? Lena asked after he left. Neutral party. Powerful enough that both Alessio and I respect him. If he's calling a meeting, it means he's tired of us disrupting business. Is that good or bad? Depends on what he wants, so Victor stood pacing the small room. But it's an opportunity. Castellano doesn't take sides, but he can broker deals that stick. So you're going? We're going. Lena blinked. What? You're coming with me. I want Castellano to see you, to understand that you're not just some accessory. You're my partner. I'm your wife. On paper. You're more than that now, whether we planned it or not. He stopped in front of her. I trust you, Lena. I need Castellano to see that. 2 days later, they drove to a restaurant in the hills outside Rome. It was closed to the public, but inside, a dozen men sat at a long table. Castellano was at the head, older than Victor, with white hair and eyes that missed nothing. Alessio was there too, sitting halfway down the table. He smirked when he saw Lena. Victor, and the lovely bride. How domestic! Victor ignored him, guiding Lena to seats across from Castellano. Thank you for coming, Castellano said. His voice was gravelly, worn by years of cigarettes and hard conversations. We have a problem. Alessio has a problem, Victor said. I'm just defending myself. By burning down half the city's operations, Alessio shot back. You call that defense? I call it proportional response. Castellano raised a hand. Enough. Both of you are costing the rest of us money. This territorial dispute ends today. He started it, Alessio said, pointing at Victor. Going soft over a woman, abandoning territories, creating power vacuums. I retired, Victor interrupted. There's a difference. I handed over operations cleanly, compensation included. You chose to see it as weakness. Because it is weakness. Victor's expression didn't change. Then why did your attack fail? If I'm so weak, why am I sitting here and your mercenaries are dead? Alessio's face darkened. You got lucky. No, I was prepared. I'm always prepared. Castellano leaned forward. Here's what's going to happen. Victor, you will complete your withdrawal from all contested territories. Alessio, you will cease hostilities and accept the transition. Both of you will pay reparations to the families affected by this war. That's unacceptable, Alessio said. It's non-negotiable, Castellano replied. Refuse, and you'll find yourself isolated. No suppliers, no buyers, no protection. I've already spoken to the others. They're tired of your tantrum. Alessio's jaw worked. He looked around the table, saw no support, and finally nodded. Fine. Victor? Agreed. On one condition. Castellano raised an eyebrow. Which is? Victor reached over and took Lena's hand. My family is off limits. Permanently. Anyone who comes after my wife or any children, we might have answers to everyone at this table. Not just me. Silence fell. Lena felt every eye turn to her. Castellano studied them both, then nodded. Agreed. Your family has sanctuary. In exchange, you stay retired. No coming back, no matter what happens. Done. Castellano looked at Alessio. Do you accept these terms? Alessio's face was stone. Yes. Then we're finished. Gentlemen, drinks are on me. The meeting dissolved into smaller conversations. Lena stayed close to Victor, hyper-aware of the dangerous men surrounding them. One of them approached, younger, maybe 40, with a scar across his cheek. Your wife fought in the warehouse attack, he said to Victor. I heard she took down one of Alessio's men with a pipe. She did. The man looked at Lena with something like respect. Impressive. Most wives in this life are decorative. You're clearly not. But I'm clearly not a lot of things people assume, Lena said. He laughed. I like her. Don't fuck this up, Victor. I don't plan to. On the drive home, Lena was quiet. Victor glanced at her. What are you thinking? He asked. That you just bet everything on us. Your safety, your reputation, your standing in that world. You tied it all to me. Yes. What if I leave? What if this doesn't work? Victor was quiet for a moment. Then I'll have made the right choice anyway. Because for the first time in 30 years, I chose something other than power. I chose you. I chose us. Whatever happens after that, I can live with. Lena felt tears prick her eyes. You really mean that. Every word. She reached over and laced her fingers through his. I'm not going anywhere. Good. Because I'm not either. They spent the next few weeks rebuilding. Victor finalized the transfer of his operations, paid out settlements, closed the books on decades of business. It was exhausting, detail-heavy work, and Lena helped where she could, reviewing contracts, sitting in on meetings, asking questions that made his lawyers nervous. "You're good at this," Victor told her one evening. "At what?" "Seeing through the bullshit. Half these guys have been skimming for years, and you spotted it in 10 minutes. I used to help my dad with his books, before he ruined everything." She paused. "I've been thinking about him." "What about him?" "I want to see him, one more time." Victor set down his pen. "Why?" "Because I need to tell him what he's done, what his choices cost. Not for him, for me. It's dangerous. If Alessio's watching, I don't care. Set it up." Victor studied her face, then nodded. "I'll make the call." They met in a park this time, somewhere public. Her father looked worse than ever, gaunt, hollow-eyed, like he'd aged a decade in 4 months. He stood when he saw Lena, his hands shaking. "Lena," he said. "Dad." They sat on a bench. Victor stood nearby, giving them space but staying alert. "Thank you for agreeing to see me," her father said. "I didn't do it for you. I did it for me." Lena kept her voice level. "I need to say something, and I need you to hear it." "Okay." "You sold me to a criminal to pay your debts, and you've spent months trying to convince yourself it was the only choice, that you were protecting me, that you had no other option. But that's not true." "Lena, let me finish." Her voice hardened. "You had choices. You could have declared bankruptcy, could have gone to the police, could have run, but you chose the easiest path for yourself, and you sacrificed me to take it." Her father's face crumpled. I know that now." "Do you? Because you called it keeping us both alive. You called it saving the family. You called it everything except what it was, cowardice." "You're right. You're absolutely right. I know I am." Lena took a breath. "But here's the thing. What you did to me, it broke me. For a long time I was shattered, terrified, angry. I hated you. I hated Victor. I hated myself for not being strong enough to escape. I'm so sorry. But somewhere in all that darkness, I found something. Strength I didn't know I had. A partnership I never expected. A life that's actually mine." She looked at him. "So I'm not going to let you keep poisoning it. I'm done carrying your guilt." Her father wiped his eyes. "What does that mean?" "It means I forgive you, not because you deserve it, but because I deserve peace." "I don't know what to say." "Don't say anything. Just hear this. I'm happy now. Actually, genuinely happy. I have a partner who respects me, a future I'm building, a life I want. And none of that erases what you did, but it means I survived it. I won." Her father looked at her, really looked at her, and nodded slowly. "You're stronger than I ever was." I know." Lena stood. "Goodbye, Dad. Will I see you again?" "I don't know. Maybe not. But if I do, it'll be on my terms, not yours." She walked away, Victor falling into step beside her. "How do you feel?" he asked once they were in the car. "Lighter, like I cut a rope that was dragging me under." "Good. That's how you should feel." "Thank you. For setting it up, for being there, for all of it." Victor took her hand. "You don't need to thank me for being your partner. That's what partners do." The next phase of their life began quietly. Victor finished divesting from his criminal enterprises, investing instead in legitimate businesses, restaurants, real estate, a small import company. The money was cleaner, the hours longer, the stress different but somehow more manageable. Lena started exploring what she wanted to do. She dropped out of college to come to Rome, but that didn't mean she couldn't go back. She enrolled in online courses, started reading again, not just novels, but philosophy, psychology, history. "What are you trying to figure out?" Victor asked one evening, finding her surrounded by books. "How people survive trauma, how they rebuild." She looked up at him. "How we did." "And what have you learned?" "That there's no one way. Some people break and stay broken. Some people break and rebuild into something different. We did that. Both of us." Victor sat beside her. "You think I was broken? I think you built an empire to avoid feeling anything, and then I showed up and ruined that." He smiled faintly. Ruined it. That's one way to put it. What would you call it? Saved it. Saved me. He pulled her close. I was surviving, Lena. Just surviving. You made me want to live. She kissed him, slow and sweet. The feeling's mutual. 3 months after the meeting with Castellano, Lena woke up feeling off. Nauseous, tired, her breast tender. At first she thought it was stress. Then she missed her period. She took a test. Then another. Then a third. All positive. She sat on the bathroom floor, staring at the little plastic sticks, her mind racing. Pregnant. She was pregnant. With Victor's child. The thought terrified her and thrilled her in equal measure. When Victor came home that evening, she was sitting in the garden, hands trembling. What's wrong? He asked immediately, reading her face. Lena looked up at him. I'm pregnant. Victor went completely still. For a long moment he didn't move, didn't speak. Then he sat down beside her, his hand finding hers. You're sure? He asked quietly. 3 tests, sure. How do you feel? Scared? Excited? Confused? All of it at once. Victor was quiet, his thumb tracing circles on her palm. What do you want to do? Lena looked at him sharply. Do you want this baby? I'm asking what you want, Lena. This is your body, your choice. Whatever you decide, I'll support you. She'd expected him to be thrilled or demanding or something definitive. Instead, he was leaving it entirely up to her. I want to keep it, but I'm terrified of bringing a child into this world, your world. My world is changing. I've already changed it. Victor shifted to face her fully. No more violence, no more danger, just legitimate business and family. That's what I want. That's what I'm building. Can you really leave it all behind, completely? I already have. Everything left is legal, boring even. I want this child to grow up safe, normal. I want to be a father without worrying about threats around every corner. Lena's eyes filled with tears. You really mean that? Every word. I never thought I'd have this chance again. A family. A future that isn't just about survival. He placed his hand gently on her stomach. If you're willing to do this with me, I'll spend the rest of my life making sure you both have everything you need. I'm willing, Lena whispered. I'm scared, but I'm willing. Victor pulled her close and she felt the tension drain from his body. We're going to be okay. All 3 of us. You think it's a girl? I hope so. A daughter who's as strong and stubborn as her mother. Lena laughed through her tears. She's going to be a handful. I'm counting on it. The pregnancy changed everything. Victor became impossibly protective, hovering, worrying, driving Lena slightly crazy with his concern. But underneath the anxiety, she could see something else. Pure, uncomplicated joy at the idea of being a father again. He attended every doctor's appointment, asked a million questions, read books about pregnancy and child development. At night, he'd talk to Lena's growing belly, telling their daughter, they'd found out at 20 weeks, about the world she'd be born into. You're going to have everything I didn't, he murmured one night, his hand on Lena's stomach. Safety, stability, parents who are present and in love. I promise you that. Lena ran her fingers through his hair. You're going to be a good father. I'm going to try. That's all anyone can do. He made more changes. Sold off the last questionable operations he'd been holding on to. Invested in things that could be passed down without blood attached. The vineyard, a restaurant, commercial real estate. Things their daughter could inherit without inheriting danger. His former associates noticed, some understood, others didn't. One of his old lieutenants showed up at the villa, angry. You're abandoning us. I'm retiring, Victor corrected. There's a difference. Everyone who wants out gets a severance package. Everyone who wants to stay in the life can work for Castellano. I've already arranged it. After everything we've been through, you're just walking away? I'm walking toward something better. You should consider doing the same. The man shook his head. This life is all I know. Then I wish you luck. But I'm done. The man left, and Victor returned to Lena, who'd been listening from the doorway. Do you regret it? She asked. Leaving them behind? No. I regret that it took me this long to realize what actually matters. And what's that? He pulled her close, his hand finding her belly. This, you, our family. Everything else is just noise. At 7 months pregnant, Lena insisted on confronting one more piece of her past. She wanted to see her father again. Victor didn't like it, but he understood. Are you sure? I need full closure, real closure. Not just forgiveness, but goodbye. Then I'm coming with you. They met at the same cafe. Her father arrived early, looking marginally better, like maybe he'd started trying to pull himself together. When he saw Lena's belly, his eyes widened. You're pregnant, he said. Yes. Victor's? Yes. He sat down heavily. How are you feeling? Good. Really good, actually. His eyes filled with tears. I'm glad. You deserve to be happy. Lena sat across from him. I came to tell you something. What? That this is goodbye. Real goodbye. Not, maybe we'll see each other. Not, we'll figure it out later. Just goodbye. Her father nodded slowly. I understand. Do you? Because I need you to really hear this. I've forgiven you. I told you that last time. But forgiveness doesn't mean reconciliation. It just means I'm not carrying your mistakes anymore. I get it. I'm about to be a mother, and I need to protect my child from anything that could hurt them. That includes toxic relationships, even with family. Especially with family, her father said quietly. Yeah, especially with family. They sat in silence for a moment, then her father spoke. For what it's worth, I'm proud of you. You survived something that would have destroyed most people. You're stronger than I'll ever be. I know. Lena stood. Take care of yourself, Dad. I hope you find peace. You too, Lena. You and your family. She walked away for the last time, Victor beside her, and didn't look back. In the car, Victor took her hand. How do you feel? Free. Finally. Actually free. Good. That's how you should feel. The baby came early. Lena went into labor at 37 weeks, her water breaking in the middle of the night. Victor nearly crashed the car twice, getting her to the hospital, his hands white-knuckled on the steering wheel. You're going too fast, Lena gasped between contractions. I'm going exactly the right speed to get you there before you have this baby in the car. Victor, just breathe. We're almost there. Labor was long and brutal. 18 hours of pain that made Lena scream, curse, and threaten to divorce Victor even though they'd barely had a real wedding. He stayed by her side the entire time, holding her hand, murmuring encouragement even when she told him to shut up. I hate you, she panted during a particularly bad contraction. No, you don't. Yes, I do. This is your fault. Technically, it's half your fault. Don't be logical right now. I will murder you. He smiled and kissed her forehead. You're doing great. I'm dying. You're not dying. You're bringing our daughter into the world. When their baby finally arrived, small, wrinkled, wailing at the top of her lungs, Lena felt something crack open inside her chest. A love so fierce and immediate it took her breath away. Victor held their daughter with shaking hands, tears streaming down his face. She's perfect. She looks like an angry raisin, Lena said, exhausted but smiling. The most beautiful angry raisin in the world. They named her Sophia, after Victor's first wife. Lena had suggested it, and Victor had cried when she did. Are you sure? He'd asked. She gave you your first chance at love. I want to honor that. Thank you. That means more than you know. The first few months were chaos, sleepless nights, endless diapers, the constant terror that they were doing everything wrong. But they muddled through together, learning as they went, building their family one exhausted day at a time. Victor was surprisingly good at it. Patient in ways Lena hadn't expected, gentle when Sophia cried, fiercely protective when anyone came too close. He'd wake up for night feedings without complaint, change diapers while singing Italian lullabies, walk the floors at 3 a.m, rocking their daughter to sleep. You're a natural, Lena said one night, watching him with Sophia. I'm terrified every second, but I love her too much to let fear win. Lena understood that completely. Fear had controlled so much of her life. Fear of her father's failures, fear of Victor's world, fear of who she might become. But Sophia changed everything. She was worth being brave for. When Sophia was 6 months old, Victor made his final break with the past. He sold his remaining questionable assets to a consortium of buyers, keeping only the completely legitimate businesses. The transition cost him millions in lost revenue, but he didn't hesitate. "Money's replaceable," he told Lena. "She's not. You're not. This family is all that matters now." Alessio heard about it. He showed up at the villa one afternoon, walking past the guards like he owned the place. Lena was in the garden with Sofia when Victor brought him out. Her whole body tensed, instinctively pulling her daughter closer. "I heard you retired," Alessio said, his tone mocking. "Completely out. No ties left." "That's right," Victor said calmly. Alessio looked at Lena and Sofia. "Fatherhood suits you, makes you weak. It makes me human. There's a difference." "Is there?" Alessio stepped closer and Victor moved slightly, putting himself between Alessio and his family. "Because from where I'm standing, you've thrown away an empire for a woman and a baby. I've thrown away a life that was killing me. What I've built now is worth more than any empire ever was." Alessio studied him, then laughed. "You actually believe that?" "I do." "Then you're a fool." "Maybe, but I'm a happy fool. And I'll live longer than you will because I'm not looking over my shoulder anymore." Victor's voice dropped. "We're done here, Alessio. Don't come back." For a moment, tension crackled in the air. Then Alessio shrugged. "Fine. Rot in domestic bliss. See if I care." He left, and Victor returned to Lena's side, immediately checking on Sofia. "Is she okay?" he asked. "She's fine. Slept through the whole thing." Lena looked up at him. "Are you okay?" "Better than okay. That was the last thread connecting me to that life. Now, we're really free." And they were. The years that followed were quieter, fuller, richer than anything either of them had known. They had 2 more children, a son named Marco and another daughter, Elena. The villa filled with noise and chaos and laughter, skinned knees and birthday parties and school plays and piano recitals. Victor retired completely at 70, handing his remaining businesses to trusted managers. He spent his days with his family, teaching his children Italian and chess, taking them to museums, cooking elaborate Sunday dinners that left the kitchen a disaster. Lena went back to school, finished her degree online, then started working with an organization that helped victims of trafficking and forced marriages. The work was emotionally draining but deeply meaningful. She understood those women in ways others couldn't. She'd been where they were. On their 10th wedding anniversary, they'd had a real ceremony by then with their children present and friends they'd made in their new life. Victor took Lena back to the coastal house where everything had changed between them. "Do you remember the first time we kissed here?" he asked, standing on the terrace overlooking the sea. "How could I forget? We were covered in adrenaline and terrible decisions." He laughed. "We've come a long way from that warehouse." "We have." Lena looked out at the water, the same view that had witnessed so many turning points in their relationship. "Do you ever think about what would have happened if things had gone differently? If you'd let me go that first month?" "Every day." And I'm grateful I was selfish enough to keep you. Not as a prisoner, I hope you know that's not what I mean, but because somewhere along the way, we became partners. Equals. I didn't know how much I needed that until I had it." Lena turned to him. "I used to hate you, you know." "I know. You reminded me frequently. Now I can't imagine my life without you." "The feeling's mutual." He pulled her close. "You saved me, Lena. From a life that had no meaning beyond survival and power, you gave me a reason to be better, to want better." "We saved each other." "Yeah, we did." They stood there, watching the sun set over the Mediterranean, and Lena thought about the terrified 19-year-old girl who'd arrived in Rome with no idea what was waiting for her. That girl would never have believed this could be her life. A loving marriage, 3 children, peace, purpose. But she'd survived. More than that, she'd grown, transformed, found strength in impossible circumstances. Learned that the worst moments could lead to unexpected grace if you fought hard enough for it. And she'd learned that love didn't always look the way you expected. Sometimes it grew in darkness. Sometimes it came from the most unlikely source. Sometimes the person who hurt you could also be the person who helped you heal, if you were both willing to change. That was the real story. Not a fairy tale. Not a simple narrative of good and evil. Just 2 broken people who'd chosen to rebuild together, who'd found something real in the wreckage of who they used to be. And in the end, that was enough. Peace, it turned out, was harder than war. The truce with Alessio held, but it was fragile, built on mutual exhaustion rather than trust. Victor spent his days managing the aftermath, compensating families of the men who'd died, rebuilding supply lines, smoothing over relationships with allies who'd questioned his judgment during the conflict. Lena watched him carry the weight of it, saw how it aged him in ways the violence never had. She'd moved into his bedroom 3 weeks after the meeting with Alessio. Not because he'd asked, but because sleeping alone felt wrong after everything they'd been through. The first night, they'd barely touched, just lay side by side in the darkness. By the second week, she'd fallen asleep with her head on his chest, listening to his heartbeat. It wasn't love. Not yet, but it was something. One morning, Lena woke to find Victor's side of the bed empty. She found him in his study, staring at a ledger, his reading glasses perched on his nose. He looked tired. "How long have you been up?" she asked. "A few hours." "You need to sleep." "I need to work." Lena crossed the room and took the ledger from his hands. "You need to take care of yourself." Victor looked up at her. That's rich coming from someone who ran into a gunfight with a metal pipe. That was different. How? That was survival. This is you slowly killing yourself because you won't let anyone else carry the load. Victor leaned back in his chair, rubbing his eyes. "I don't know how to let go." "Then learn." Lena sat on the edge of the desk. "You have people. Use them. They're not you." The words hung between them. Lena felt her chest tighten. "What does that mean?" "It means I trust you in ways I don't trust them. You don't want anything from me except honesty." "I want more than that," Lena said quietly. Victor looked at her. "What do you want?" "I want you to stop treating yourself like you're expendable." He was quiet for a long moment. Then he stood, closing the distance between them. His hands found her waist, pulling her closer. "You're the first person in 20 years to make me feel like I'm more than the empire I built," he said. "You are more than that." "Am I?" "Yes." Lena cupped his face. "You're flawed and stubborn, and you make terrible decisions sometimes. But you're also loyal and protective, and you care more than you want to admit. That's who you are." Victor's forehead touched hers. "I don't deserve you." "Probably not. But you have me anyway." He kissed her then, slow and deliberate, and Lena felt something shift between them. Something that had been building for months, maybe since that first night when she'd thrown food at the wall and he'd walked away instead of punishing her. When they broke apart, Victor's eyes were softer than she'd ever seen them. "I love you," he said. Lena's breath caught. She'd suspected, maybe even hoped, but hearing it was different. "You do?" "Yes. I don't know when it started. Maybe the library, maybe the warehouse, maybe before, but it's there now." Lena felt tears prick her eyes. "I love you too. I didn't want to. I tried not to, but I do." "That's inconvenient," she laughed. "Extremely." They stood there holding each other, and for the first time since Rome, Lena felt like she could breathe. The next few weeks settled into a rhythm Lena hadn't known was possible. She woke beside Victor, had breakfast with him in the garden, spent her afternoons reading or walking the grounds. Sometimes she sat in on his meetings, offering perspectives that surprised his associates. They'd stopped looking at her like she was just decoration. Now they looked at her like she might actually matter. Victor noticed. "You're making them nervous," he said one evening. "Good, they should be nervous. Half their ideas are terrible. And you're not afraid to tell them." "Should I be?" "No, I like it." He pulled her close. "You see through the performance. That's rare. Or maybe I just don't care about impressing them." That too. But the piece was brittle. Lena could feel it in the way Victor's phone rang at odd hours, and the tension that crept into his shoulders when certain names came up. Alessio was quiet, but that didn't mean he'd forgotten. 2 months after their meeting at the restaurant, reality cracked again. Lena was in the library when Victor stormed in, his face dark. "What happened?" she asked. "Alessio's moving against my suppliers. Undercutting prices, spreading rumors, trying to starve me out. Can he do that?" "He's doing it." Victor poured himself a drink. "He wants me to react, to break the truce so he can justify escalating. So don't react. It's not that simple. If I don't respond, I look weak. If I do respond, I give him exactly what he wants. Lena set down her book. Then find a third option. Like what? I don't know, but there's always a third option. You taught me that. Victor looked at her, something like hope flickering in his eyes. You really believe that? I have to, otherwise what's the point? He sat beside her, silent for a long moment. Then he pulled out his phone and made a call. Lena didn't understand all the Italian, but she caught enough. He was calling in favors, reaching out to neutral parties, building a coalition that didn't require violence. It took 3 weeks, but it worked. Victor's allies pressured Alessio from multiple sides, not with threats, but with economics. Contracts redirected, partnerships dissolved, opportunities evaporating. Alessio found himself isolated, his aggression costing him more than it gained. When he finally called to negotiate, Victor put him on speaker. You win this round, Alessio said, his voice tight. There are no rounds, Victor replied. There's just survival, and you're making it harder than it needs to be. So what do you want? I want you to leave me alone. I'm out of the game, Alessio, completely. No territory, no operations, nothing you need to worry about. And I'm supposed to believe that? Believe what you want. But if you come after me or my family again, I won't play defense. I'll dismantle everything you've built. Not with violence, with information. There was a long pause. What information? Every dirty deal, every bribe, every body you've buried. I've been collecting insurance for 20 years. It's all documented, ready to go to the right people if anything happens to me or mine. Alessio's breathing was audible over the line. You're bluffing. Try me. Another pause. Then, fine. You want out? You're out. But don't come back. I won't. The line went dead. Victor set the phone down and exhaled slowly. Did you really have all that information? Lena asked. Most of it. Enough to make him think twice. And if he calls your bluff, then we deal with it. But I don't think he will. He's pragmatic. This war was costing him too much. Lena leaned against him. So it's really over. The worst of it, yeah. There'll always be smaller fires to put out, but the big threat, that's done. How do you feel? Victor considered this. Lighter, like I've been carrying something heavy for so long I forgot it was there, and now it's gone. Good. You deserve that. So do you. They sat together in the quiet library, sunlight streaming through the windows, and Lena realized she was happy. Actually, genuinely happy. It had been so long she'd almost forgotten what it felt like. 3 months later, Lena realized she was pregnant. She'd missed her period, felt nauseous in the mornings, exhausted by noon. She took 3 tests before she believed it, all positive. She sat on the bathroom floor, staring at the little plastic sticks, her mind racing. A baby. She was going to have a baby. With Victor. The thought terrified her and thrilled her in equal measure. When Victor came home that evening, she was sitting in the garden, hands trembling. What's wrong? He asked immediately, reading her face. Lena looked up at him. I'm pregnant. Victor went completely still. For a moment he didn't move, didn't speak. Then he sat down beside her, his hand finding hers. You're sure? He asked quietly. 3 tests, sure. How do you feel? Scared, confused, excited, terrified, all of it at once. Victor was quiet, his thumb tracing circles on her palm. Do you want to keep it? Lena looked at him sharply. Do you? I'm asking what you want, Lena. This is your body, your choice. Whatever you decide, I'll support you. She'd expected him to be thrilled or demanding or something definitive. Instead, he was leaving it entirely up to her. I want to keep it, but I'm terrified of bringing a child into this world. Your world. My world is changing, Victor said. I'm making sure of it. No more violence, no more danger. Just legitimate business and family. Can you really walk away from all of it? I already have. Everything left is legal, boring even. He looked at her. I want this child to grow up safe, normal. I want to be a father without worrying about threats around every corner. Lena's eyes filled. You really mean that? Every word. I never thought I'd have this chance again, a family, a future that isn't just about survival. He placed his hand gently on her stomach. If you're willing to do this with me, I'll spend the rest of my life making sure you both have everything you need. I'm willing, Lena whispered. I'm scared, but I'm willing. Victor pulled her close, and she felt the tension drain from his body. We're going to be okay. All three of us. The pregnancy changed everything. Victor became impossibly protective, hovering, worrying, driving Lena slightly crazy with his concern. But underneath the anxiety, she could see something else. Joy. Pure, uncomplicated joy at the idea of being a father again. He attended every doctor's appointment, asked a million questions, read books about pregnancy and child development. At night, he'd talk to Lena's growing belly, telling their daughter, they'd found out at 20 weeks, about the world she'd be born into. You're going to have everything I didn't, he murmured one night, his hand on Lena's stomach. Safety. Stability. Parents who are present, I promise you that. Lena ran her fingers through his hair. You're going to be a good father. I'm going to try. That's all anyone can do. He started making more changes, sold off operations he'd been holding on to out of habit, invested in legitimate businesses, restaurants, real estate, a small vineyard, things that could be passed down without blood attached. His old associates noticed. Some understood, others didn't. You've gone soft, one of them said during a meeting. Victor didn't flinch. I've gotten smart. There's a difference. This life has an expiration date. I'm choosing to retire before it chooses for me. And what about loyalty? The people who've stood by you? I'm taking care of them. Everyone who wants out gets a severance package. Everyone who wants to stay in the life can work for Castellano. I've already arranged it. You're really done. Completely. The man studied him, then nodded slowly. Then I wish you well, Victor. Truly. Thank you. One by one, Victor closed the doors on his past. It wasn't easy. There were complications, negotiations, a few tense moments when old grudges resurfaced. But he handled it all with the same calm determination he'd shown running his empire. Lena watched it happen, watched him shed the weight of decades, and fell even more in love with him. At 7 months pregnant, Lena insisted on doing one last thing. She wanted to see her father. Victor didn't like it, but he understood. Are you sure? I need closure, real closure. Then I'm coming with you. They met at a cafe in a quiet part of the city. Her father arrived early, looking worse than he had at their last meeting. Thinner, grayer, hunched over like the weight of guilt was crushing him. He stood when Lena approached, his eyes going immediately to her belly. You're pregnant. Yes. Victor's? Yes. He nodded, sitting back down heavily. How are you? I'm good. Really good, actually. Her father's eyes filled with tears. I'm glad. You deserve to be happy. Lena sat across from him, Victor standing nearby but giving them space. I came to tell you something. What? I forgive you. Her father blinked like he couldn't have heard right. What? I forgive you, not because you deserve it, you don't, but because I'm done carrying the weight of what you did. I'm done letting it define me. Lena, I'm not finished. Her voice was firm but not unkind. You made a terrible choice. You sold your daughter to save yourself. That's something you'll have to live with. But I'm choosing not to let it poison the rest of my life. Her father wiped his eyes. I think about it every day. What I did to you. I hate myself for it. I know, but your guilt isn't my responsibility. I have a family now, a child on the way, a future I actually want. And none of that can happen if I'm still anchored to the past. So this is goodbye. This is me setting both of us free. I hope you find peace, Dad. I really do. But I can't be the one to give it to you. She stood, and her father stood with her. For a moment, they just looked at each other. Then he stepped forward and hugged her, briefly, awkwardly, like he didn't quite know how anymore. Thank you, he whispered, for being stronger than I ever was. Lena pulled back. Take care of yourself. She walked away, Victor falling into step beside her, and didn't look back. How do you feel? Victor asked once they were in the car. Free, Lena said. Finally, actually free. He took her hand. Good. That's how you should feel. The baby came early. Lena went into labor at 37 weeks, her water breaking in the middle of the night. Victor nearly crashed the car 3 times, getting her to the hospital. Labor was long and brutal. 18 hours of pain that made Lena scream, curse, and threaten to divorce Victor, even though they'd barely had a real wedding. He stayed by her side the entire time, holding her hand, murmuring encouragement even when she told him to shut up. When their daughter finally arrived, small, wrinkled, wailing at the top of her lungs, Lena felt something crack open inside her, a love so fierce and immediate it took her breath away. Victor held the baby with shaking hands, tears streaming down his face. "She's perfect. She looks like an angry raisin," Lena said, exhausted but smiling. "The most beautiful angry raisin in the world." They named her Sophia, after Victor's first wife. It felt right, honoring the past while building the future. The first few months were chaos. Sleepless nights, endless diapers, the constant terror that they were doing everything wrong. But they muddled through together, learning as they went. Victor was surprisingly good at it. Patient in ways Lena hadn't expected, gentle when Sophia cried, fiercely protective when anyone came too close. He'd wake up for night feedings without complaint, change diapers while singing Italian lullabies, walk the floors at 3 a.m, rocking their daughter to sleep. "You're a natural," Lena said one night, watching him with Sophia. "I'm terrified every second, but I love her too much to let fear win." Lena understood that completely. Fear had controlled so much of her life. Fear of her father's failures, fear of Victor's world, fear of who she might become. But Sophia changed everything. She was worth being brave for. When Sophia was 6 months old, Victor made his final break with the past. He sold his remaining questionable assets to a consortium of buyers, keeping only the completely legitimate businesses. The transition cost him millions in lost revenue, but he didn't hesitate. "Money's replaceable," he told Lena. "She's not. You're not. This family is all that matters now." Alessio heard about it, of course. He showed up at the villa unannounced one afternoon, walking past the guards like he owned the place. Lena was in the garden with Sophia when Victor brought him out. Her whole body tensed. "I heard you retired," Alessio said, his tone mocking. "I evolved," Victor corrected, his voice calm. Alessio looked at Lena and Sophia. "Fatherhood suits you. Makes you weak." "It makes me human. There's a difference. Is there?" Alessio stepped closer, and Victor moved slightly, putting himself between Alessio and his family. "Because from where I'm standing, you've thrown away an empire for a woman and a baby. I've thrown away a life that was killing me. What I've built now is worth more than any empire." Alessio studied him, then laughed. "You actually believe that?" "I do." "Then you're a fool." "Maybe, but I'm a happy fool, and I'll live longer than you will." Victor's voice dropped. "We're done here, Alessio. Don't come back." For a moment, tension crackled in the air. Then Alessio shrugged. "Fine. Rotten domestic bliss. See if I care." He left, and Victor returned to Lena's side. "Are you okay?" she asked. "Better than okay." That was the last thread. Now we're really free. And they were. The years that followed were quieter than anything either of them had known. They had 2 more children, a son named Marco and another daughter, Elena. The villa filled with noise and chaos and laughter, skinned knees and birthday parties and school plays. Victor retired completely at 70, handing his remaining businesses to trusted managers. He spent his days with his family, teaching his children Italian, taking them to museums, cooking elaborate Sunday dinners. Lena went back to school, finished her degree, then started working with an organization that helped victims of trafficking and forced marriages. The work was hard, emotionally draining, but it mattered. She understood those women in ways others couldn't. She'd been where they were. On their 10th wedding anniversary, they'd had a real ceremony by then, with their children present. Victor took Lena back to the coastal house where everything had changed between them. "Do you remember the first time we kissed?" he asked, standing on the terrace overlooking the sea. "How could I forget? We were covered in adrenaline and bad decisions." He laughed. "We've come a long way from that warehouse." "We have." Lena looked out at the water. "Do you ever think about what would have happened if things had gone differently? If you'd let me go that first month? Every day. And I'm grateful I was selfish enough to keep you. Not as a prisoner, but because somewhere along the way we became partners. Equals. I didn't know how much I needed that until I had it." Lena turned to him. I used to hate you, you know? I know. Now I can't imagine my life without you. The feeling's mutual. He pulled her close. You saved me, Lena. From a life that had no meaning beyond survival, you gave me a reason to be better. We saved each other. Yeah, we did. They stood there watching the sun set over the Mediterranean, and Lena thought about the terrified 19-year-old girl who'd arrived in Rome with no idea what was waiting for her. That girl would never have believed this could be her life. But she'd survived. More than that, she'd grown, found strength in impossible circumstances, learned that the worst moments could lead to unexpected grace if you fought hard enough for it. The years continued to pass. Sophia graduated university with honors, Marco followed 2 years later, and Elena was already talking about medical school. Victor watched them all with a pride that bordered on awe. We did something right, he told Lena at Sophia's graduation. We did a lot of things right, eventually, after doing everything wrong first. That's how you learn. Victor was 78 when his health started failing. Heart problems, the doctor said. Decades of stress finally catching up. Lena watched him slow down, saw the frustration in his eyes when his body couldn't keep up with his mind anymore. I'm not ready, he told her one night, lying in bed. Ready for what? To leave you. To miss watching them grow. Any of it. Lena's throat tightened. Then don't. Not yet. I don't think I get a choice. You always have a choice. That's what you taught me. She took his hand. So choose to stay. Fight. You're good at that. He smiled weakly. I'm tired of fighting. Then rest. I'll do the fighting for both of us. He squeezed her hand. I love you more than I've ever loved anything. I love you too. Always have, even when I didn't want to. They had 2 more years, good years, filled with grandchildren and quiet mornings and the kind of peace neither of them had expected to find. Victor lived to see Sophia get married, to hold his first grandchild, to celebrate one more Christmas with the family he'd built. When he finally passed, it was at home, in the bedroom they'd shared for 15 years, with Lena beside him and their children gathered close. Thank you, he whispered, his voice barely audible. For what? For choosing me. For staying. For giving me a reason to be better than I was. Lena kissed his forehead, tears streaming down her face. Thank you for letting me. For seeing me as more than what my father made me. For loving me even when I made it difficult. He smiled one last time. It was never difficult. You were always worth it. His eyes closed and his breathing slowed. Lena held his hand until it went still, until the man who'd been her captor, her husband, her partner, her love was gone. The funeral was massive. Hundreds of people from every chapter of Victor's complicated life. Former associates who'd gone legitimate, business partners, family, friends. They all came to pay respects to a man who'd lived multiple lives and somehow found redemption in his last one. Lena stood at the grave with her children flanked around her and thought about the impossible journey that had brought her here. From terrified teenager to widow, from prisoner to partner, from victim to survivor to something stronger still. It wasn't the life she'd planned. It wasn't the life anyone would have chosen. But it was the life she'd lived, and despite everything, the fear, the violence, the impossible choices, she wouldn't trade it. Because buried in all that darkness had been moments of profound light, love found in the least likely place. Strength discovered through desperation. A man who'd started as her worst nightmare and ended as her greatest love. She placed a rose on Victor's grave, her children doing the same, and walked away knowing that his legacy wasn't the empire he'd built or the fear he'd inspired. It was the family standing beside her, the choice he'd made to be better, the love he'd given freely once he learned how. Life, Lena understood now, was rarely simple. Good people made terrible choices. Bad people found ways to redeem themselves. And sometimes, the most beautiful things grew from the darkest soil. Years later, when her grandchildren asked about their grandfather, Lena told them the truth. Not a sanitized version, but the real story. A man who'd done terrible things and spent the rest of his life trying to make better choices. A girl who'd been sold like property and fought her way to freedom. A love that shouldn't have worked but did anyway. Was he a good man? They'd ask. And Lena would think carefully before answering. He was a complicated man who chose to be better. He made mistakes. big ones. But he owned them and spent his life trying to balance the scales. That's all any of us can do. Own our choices and try to be better tomorrow than we were today. Because in the end, that was what survival looked like. Not perfection, but persistence. Not erasing the past, but learning from it. Not pretending the darkness never existed, but choosing to build something bright anyway. Lena Hayes. Romano, once a prisoner, always a survivor, eventually a woman who'd found peace in the most unlikely place, lived that truth every day. She worked with trafficking victims, helped women escape dangerous situations, used her story to give others hope that even the worst circumstances could transform into something worth having. She never remarried. Part of her had died with Victor, and she was okay with that. She had her children, her grandchildren, her work. She had a life that mattered. On what would have been their 25th anniversary, Lena returned to the coastal house. She sat on the terrace where they'd first admitted they loved each other, watched the sun set over the water, and talked to Victor like he was still there. "We did it," she said to the empty air. "We built something good from something terrible. The kids are happy, successful, whole. They don't carry our scars. That's what you wanted, right? For them to be free of all of it." The waves crashed against the rocks below, and Lena felt a sense of peace settle over her. "I miss you," she continued, "every day. But I'm okay. We're all okay. You gave us that. A foundation strong enough to stand on even after you're gone. So rest easy, Victor. Your family is safe. Your children are loved. And the woman you married? She's free. Finally, completely free." She stayed until the stars came out, then drove back to Rome, back to the villa that had been her prison and then her home. Back to the life she'd built from ashes. And in the quiet moments, when the house was still and the night was dark, Lena could still feel Victor's presence. Not haunting her, but accompanying her. A reminder that even the darkest beginnings could lead to unexpected light. She'd been 19 when her life shattered. She was 75 now, surrounded by family, living proof that survival was possible. That transformation was real. That love could grow in the strangest places if you were brave enough to let it. The story didn't have a fairy tale ending because real life never did. But it had something better: resolution, growth. A woman who'd reclaimed her agency, a family built from rubble, and the hard-won understanding that strength wasn't about never breaking. It was about breaking and choosing to rebuild anyway. Lena Hayes had learned that lesson the hard way, and she'd spent the rest of her life teaching it to anyone willing to listen.